So I think what we'll do is just have Greg Eisen, who is president of the Georgia Muscadine Growers Association, maybe come up and give a few announcements for the association and talk. Or you can be back there, however you want to do it.
I'm sorry?
You can come up here or you can be back there, it doesn't matter.
I'll just be real brief. Welcome to our educational sessions. We're still very, very excited about the future of Muscadines. I think every year the demand grows more. Having conversations on the trade show, the typical discussion is how Muscadines are still one of the most undersold commodities of fruits in the United States. We all are pushing forward on trying to get more familiarity with the product and to get more consistent inventory in the stores that will allow more people who are used to eating them, as well as introducing new people who've never eaten them, to just how incredible this fruit is. Just real quick, we've got, of course, Sarah and Dr. Brandon here. We appreciate everything that you've helped with the disease aspects of the muscadine industry. We also have, I'd like to recognize a couple of new growers that's in the room this year. We have Sarah and Drew Moody, who recently have purchased a large vineyard in Sylvania, Georgia. We welcome you to the Muscadine family, and as you'll realize, this is a great source of information we're all in the same boat, and the old saying is, as the tide rises, all ships rise. So anyone that would be more than happy to help you all in any way we possibly can. Without further ado, I'll hand it back over to Dr. Connor. We appreciate all of y'all being here, and certainly the love for this unique commodity that we all share. Thank you.
All right, I will read through the slides they want us to go through, and then we'll start at 2 o'clock. So we'll have the maximum time for the academic sessions. Again, Patrick Connor, University of Georgia Horticulture. I'll be the moderator. AgNet Specialty Crop Industry is a Wi-Fi sponsor this year. So if you need the Wi-Fi, the username is the Southeast Regional Conference, and your password's 2024 SEREG. Probably a little late to get in the game for the app, but if you want to download the app, it's available there. Pesticide CEU credits, they're all paperless this year. They are available for this session. You just need to scan your name badge as you check into the session out front. This will be the method to verify your presence in the session and request your credits. No additional forms to fill out. We thank our sponsors. Be sure to visit the trade show. And let's see. USDA funding for the Southeast Regional and Vegetable Conference made possible with a grant. And so everything you're seeing here is from the speakers and not from the USDA in terms of who's responsible for the information. Silent auctions outside the trade show. Bidding takes place on a text-to-bid platform. If you want to participate, just scan the QR code with your camera on the smartphone and check silent auction in the conference app. Bidding closes Saturday at 2 o'clock, so I guess that wasn't too useful, was it? We will be recording the session, so speakers, please try to remember to speak into the microphone so the recording catches it. And your questions, if you can think to remember, repeat the question into the microphone so that the question will be in the recording as well. Finally, the pink sheets on there are the surveys. Please fill those out so I can turn them in and we can make the presentations better and the conference more useful to you in the future. And that is all our announcements. It's 1:53, so we'll give it a few more minutes before we start the presentations at 2 o'clock. right, we're asking that the information that's downstairs for us.
I want to buy a couple pine trees for zone 7, probably 7C, and I want to ask if I could get one of my computers, and this is a digital information purchasers. What will go with it?
Kanza?
Yeah.
Kanza, like in Kanza. It's a northern variety. It looks like Elliot, but it's more northern adapted. It should pollinate with pollen. What? Okay. All right, we will have the pesticide CEU credit machine back shortly. We're going to go ahead and get started. Our first talk is Dr. Phil Brannon, University of Georgia plant pathologist. And he's going to be updating us on some muscadine disease information.
I'm supposed to stay over here, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. All right, so again, I'm going to be covering diseases, as Patrick said, so we'll go ahead and get started without any further ado. I would encourage y'all, if you haven't done it, to go to our Southeast Regional Muscadine Integrated Pest Management Guide. This is a regional effort we put together for muscadines, so it pretty much works for the southeastern region. It is at the smallfruits.org website if you want to find that, and then look at Integrated Pest Management Guides. It has all the information you're possibly going to need. We cover pathology, entomology, weed science, vertebrate management, viticulture, and pesticide stewardship and safety, and these are your editors that are up there. Bill Klein's in charge of it, does an excellent job, and he and I are the senior editors on all these guides, but he's the one I give credit for the muscadine guide and doing the vast majority of the work on it. And again, we've got another opportunity on that website you can find as well for the muscadine grape production guide. That was led by Mark Hoffman, so it'll be a good opportunity for you to read and get additional information if you're interested. And soon, this is our viticulture management poster, but we're working on getting one of these for muscadines, and we are hoping to have this published within the next few months. And at muscadine meetings or through various outlets, we'll try to get these to you as well. This will just be a one-stop shop kind of a thing you can place on your barn door or somewhere where people can kind of see what's important at what time as far as muscadine production. It's a good little guide, a quick educational tool that you can utilize, again, just for your edification. I'm going to start out with a little bit of history. You're in Savannah, so this would be appropriate to kind of talk about muscadines and grapes in general and their relation to where we are in Savannah. If you go back historically, most people think about grapes and grape production for food and also for wine not coming from the United States because we haven't been here that long. And nobody knew about muscadine grapes forever and ever. And so if you look at where the traditional grape, what I call traditional grape, would have originated, it's somewhere up in this region right here. Then it moved into the Mediterranean area. But that was where what we call the Vitis vinifera grape originated. So when you look at Oglethorpe, when he came here to Savannah, he actually, as one of his primary charges, he was trying to develop European grapes here in Savannah. And it did not work. He actually did that at one of the Founders Gardens here, which is one of the oldest research type facilities as far as agricultural research in the nation, if not the oldest. And the grapes did die. He paid no attention to muscadine grapes at the time because that's not something people were familiar with, and they didn't really want to deal with that. They wanted to have traditional wine grapes and traditional grapes, and they didn't work well at all. And he actually lied about it. He sent back notes to the people who had founded the colony and said, oh yeah, the grapes are doing great. And they were not doing great. He was under some pressure, but that was one of his primary charges. It didn't work for him. And there's a lot of reasons why. If you look at traditional European grapes, they get powdery mildew really, really, really bad if you don't spray them. Muscadines do get powdery mildew, but I'm going to mention in a minute, I've never seen it to that degree, and rarely have I ever seen it at all, if at all. Phylloxera, another thing that kills these other grapes. Muscadines don't have a problem with that. Okay, so there's yet another thing it doesn't have a problem with. Downy mildew doesn't have a problem with it. Muscadines don't have any problem with that. And then last but not least, Pierce's disease. Generally, muscadines are pretty doggone resistant to Pierce's disease as well. And so we can get Pierce's disease on muscadines. Sometimes in a breeding program, you can actually breed in susceptibility. But wild muscadines are pretty doggone resistant, and most of the lines that we actually grow are pretty doggone resistant to Pierce's disease. Don't really worry about it. So what I'm telling you is kind of like what Greg said. The muscadines are an opportunity. It was overlooked back when Oglethorpe came here to Savannah. To some degree, I think we continue to overlook it because they have all these things we don't have to deal with that we deal with in other grapes. And there's certainly an opportunity for breeding some of that resistance into other grapes, and that's another story. But nonetheless, muscadines are a great grape to grow in Georgia. They're adapted for this region. They were here before Oglethorpe. And they do have resistance to a lot of things, and we can take advantage of that. But they still get diseases. Now, if you were to look at a comparable list of vinifera grapes, there'd be a lot more diseases. But muscadines have enough as it is. These are a list. Oh, by the way, this should be available to y'all somewhere through the website or the app or somehow to get these things so you can see them. So I have provided that information for y'all at some point. You should be able to look at it. But they're bitter rot, ripe rot, macrophroma rot, black rot, powder mildew, and angular leaf spot. Those are the major diseases that you have to contend with. So we'll go through these a little bit. One of the things about muscadines, they're pretty doggone resistant. Some are more resistant than others, but in general, they're pretty resistant to diseases. But the problem is if you don't spray them at all, in a wet year, you're going to get hammered with diseases. And we've had that happen in the last few years sometimes. If you miss a spray or something like that, you can get a lot of pretty serious damage on muscadines. So don't accept the fact that they don't get diseases at all, because they will. If you look at, this is on the Carlos variety, if you look at the diseases that they will get, and this is just showing a sprayed or versus an untreated control, you can see some of the diseases that are listed there, some of the ones I just put in the previous slide, and percentages of disease that they will get without spraying. So spraying is important, just pointing that out. There's also some distinction if you look at different varieties, like for example, Noble versus Carlos, and just the disease levels they will naturally occur. So Noble is a grape that's going to have less disease than Carlos. And so that's just a good example of that. So you can select for that, and that's something you can also look at other varieties for as well. Let's talk about the diseases again. So angular leaf spot, this is one that is pretty much very specific to muscadine in our state. And it is a defoliation type disease. You can see the spotting that it does. The problem is it takes the leaves off the plant. But generally mancozeb and captam, which are two broad spectrum old materials, will work pretty well on You start applications at pre-bloom and then continue on through on a 14-day schedule to late August for this. So a lot of these we're going to control together. But this is one that if you don't control it, it can cause significant damage. It will weaken your plant, and eventually you could lose the plant if you don't control it as well. So I try to tell my students, I set the bar really low. Plants don't do well without leaves. So y'all can take that home. They don't do well without leaves. Bitter rot. This is another one of the diseases that will cross over also into the Vitis vinifera grapes as well. But the infection can occur at shoot extension. Again, it is a major problem or potential problem. It produces a latent infection. Any of the tissue can be invaded, as it says here on the slide. Late season is when you'll start really seeing it show up much more so. And the bloom through the pre-harvest interval or time frame is when you really need to make sure you hit it with sprays. Again, this is another major disease that we have on muscadines. Macrophoma rot, we do occasionally see this as well. It's actually kind of misnamed. It's actually a fusicoccum type disease, but it is also another one of the rots that we can see on muscadines. It's generally controlled with fungicides in a similar fashion from bloom till harvest. So again, some of these are going to overlap. Some of the fungicides you use to control will overlap, which is good. That's very, very helpful. Ripe rot, this is another one that shows up. It is a disease that, especially when you have a humid, wet environment like we actually do have most of the time where muscadines are grown, it's going to be very conducive to it. And it's controlled through our normal fungicide program most of the time. But what I will make one comment, and I'll probably comment on this again as well. We have utilized some of the quinone outside inhibitor fungicides, things like Abound over time, for a long period of time now. And I do suspect that in some cases we could be developing resistance in this fungus. If you were to see a lot of ripe rot, we do have the opportunity at our molecular clinic down in Tifton to actually test for resistance to that particular category of fungicides. So keep that in mind. I'll make sure you contact your county agents if you're having diseases, and especially in something like ripe rot where we think we might be starting to see some resistance. That would be nice to confirm that so you can switch to other fungicides if you're seeing a disease problem there. Black rot is another one that really is pretty easily controlled with mancozeb and Captan, but it can be a major problem if you don't control it. And I'll show you a picture in a minute to go along with that. There's the symptoms on the leaves. It generally doesn't defoliate the leaves, just a lot of spots, but the leaf infections will then produce spores that will go to the fruit. And that's just an example of kind of the scabby type of a spot that you can get. But I realized last year, this is a photograph of black rot, and that was sent to us. And I honestly would not have identified that as black rot. I realized I don't think I've ever seen black rot on muscadines in my career. I see it on vinifera grapes all the time, but I didn't know it looked like that. And as you can see, it doesn't look like the same thing in the slide before, but that was black rot, and this is also black rot. So just keep that in mind. If it looks like somebody poured hot oil on your muscadine grapes, that might be black rot. That's what it looks like to me. And then powdery mildew. So this is a potential problem. You can see from the photograph on the upper, my upper right, I guess it would be your upper right as well, that is a disease that can occur on muscadines, and it produces this kind of rustining type look. It can crack the fruit and let other rots come in. I have personally not ever seen this as a major problem in muscadines. It doesn't mean it will not occur. I think in general, if you use some of the DMI fungicides in your spray program, you'll probably control it. It's not like it is in vinifera grapes at all. So not a major problem, but something you need to be aware of and need to think through in your spray program you develop. So as our spray timing, it's a lot simpler than anything you would do with vinifera grapes or the hybrids. But basically, when the shoots are 6 to 10 inches long, flowers not yet open, you start spraying. You continue until basically early August, and that probably is going to take care of it. These notes come from Bill Klein. I've got him credited there for the photograph as well. But early summer sprays provide more disease control than later sprays. What I mean by that is don't let things get out of hand. If a lot of these diseases are going to build up over time, or sometimes they'll actually have a latent infection that will show up when the sugars come up on the grape itself. So make sure you target your program effectively, especially early, to go ahead and knock things in the head before they get out of control. That's basically what we're saying with that. This is another program out of Mississippi. This just shows you basically some of the things that traditionally have been sprayed. Mancozeb and Captan are the backbone of your program. Mancozeb has a really long pre-harvest interval. I would generally say that those probably need to be in your spray tank most of the time when you're spraying, at least maybe at a low rate, if not a higher rate, sometimes when it's raining a lot. But Mancozeb first, Captan second, because the Mancozeb has that long pre-harvest interval. And then as you need other materials in there, especially during critical times like bloom, pre-bloom, bloom, post-bloom, in that time frame, add in some other chemicals, things like Nova and Abound. These are older now, but target these diseases that I've talked to you about today. Make sure you target them with chemicals that will be effective during that early critical phase. And then continue throughout the season maybe to add some of these in on top of or alternating with the Captan and the Mancozeb as appropriate. So this is again from Bill Klein. He suggests again the Mancozeb. He's almost exactly like the Mississippi State. He's talking about Nova or Rally with Captan. I think Rally is now the only name that's out there though. Yeah, I think it's just Rally at this point. I took this slide again from Bill, but this is I think it's just Rally. And so, but a DMI alternating with Captan or the Mancozeb, and then throwing in some of these other more active materials as you need them will give you a really good control program. But the one thing, again, I've got to tell you, you look at the bottom where he says where ripe rot is a problem, so you got Abound, Pristine, Flint, some of these other materials that have the QOIs in there, we do need to be aware we could be developing resistance to that. So be aware if you're using those that could be a problem. We just don't know. Now, I'm not going to go through all the slides, but this is just some of the recent research. Bill had conducted this trial. I conducted the same trial in Athens, and I got no disease at all in the grapes I conducted it on. So we had none. The only thing we could do relative to this trial is say we didn't see any phytotoxicity with any of these chemicals. And Bill saw the same thing. So there was no phytotoxicity, meaning that the chemicals, these new chemicals, didn't damage the fruit, didn't damage the leaves, and that's good news. But these are a lot of the newer chemicals that have been registered for vinifera grapes. They don't necessarily put Muscadine on those labels, but you can benefit from having them. And so that's why we looked at those, and we've now incorporated those. Again, I know you can't read all that at one time, but suffice it to say that several of these do a really, really good job of controlling most of the diseases on Muscadine. So you need to be aware of some of these. But I'm not going to ask you to do photographic memory on that. If you go to the table that is provided to you in our smallfruits.org guide, IPM guide, you can find all these chemicals listed with the diseases and with how active they are. Now, so from that should allow you a lot of information to develop a good spray program. Again, keeping in mind, Mancozeb and Captan are your backbone sprays. But then you can add in these others as you need them, especially if it's wet. I would consider adding in these other materials. And especially during the pre-bloom, bloom, post-bloom period in particular, make sure you add in some of these other materials, something that's more active than even like a Captan or a Mancozeb would be, okay? So that's how you're going to develop your spray program. It's pretty simple for Muscadines. I know that looks complicated, but you can use that information, look at the cost of the materials, look at the efficacy of the materials when you're ordering, and that can help you to develop an efficacious spray program that's relatively cost effective. This is another thing that's in that guide, and I would encourage you to utilize this as well. You know, that guide is going to be, 40 or 50 pages. Sometimes that's overwhelming for folks. But we put together in there what we call an at-a-glance fungicide schedule. Also, insect schedules are in many of the guides as well. You can go to this and figure out, okay, this is what I need to spray during this phase. This is what I should be doing. It's very, very direct. Again, allows you to develop your spray program. Everybody's spray program is going to be a little bit different, but if you'll select from those chemicals that were in that previous slide, select from the ones that are on this at the right times to put them out, the combination of those two you should spray those chemicals and get a really good response as far as disease management, or I hope you will. If you don't, we need to know about it because something else is happening there. So if you're looking at the harvest season, again, when you get into harvest, you're looking at prevention mainly. And if you get into the actual true at harvest time, there are very few materials that can be used like really, really close into harvest. But hopefully if you've done a good job with disease control, when you get closer to harvest, you won't have that many problems anyway. But there are some problems or potential with visible residues on fruit. You just have to be aware of that. I don't know how much of a problem that is for you selling your muscadines, but you might want to test some of these just to see what kind of residue they put before you spray your whole vineyard with it, just to make sure you're not going to do something that's going to hurt you in the marketplace. Again, we're not going to go through all of this, but suffice it to say that there are critical stages where each of these diseases are going to be more likely to infect. I went through some of that as I went through the individual diseases. But this is also going to be on that poster to some degree that we're going to provide for y'all later. When we get that Muscadine poster together, it will have some of that same information on there. But just the main thing, again, if you're spraying the right chemicals from that list, you're going to control all these diseases anyway. The only one that's going to be a little bit different potentially is powdery mildew. It might require some different chemistries, but in general, the DMI or a QI is going to hit that as well. But you could use potentially a sulfur on that, and that would be the only thing you'd add in there that would be different. But I think in general, I've never seen anybody use that much sulfur on muscadines. All right, let's switch gears and just cover some of the other things that you're going to see potentially. Nematodes, generally not a problem. Crown gall, like we have a major problem on vinifera grapes, again in South Georgia, not a problem. I used to say it's not a problem in muscadines, but I was wrong. It can be, but I'll tell you that in a second. But if you're looking at nematodes, again, for the most part, muscadines don't have that much of a problem with nematodes. We did a survey a few years back, not that long ago actually, but we looked at muscadine grapes and some of the nematodes that can occur in Georgia and North Carolina. And they will have a population of nematodes on them. So if you take a soil sample, you're going to find nematodes. I just don't think they mean that much when it actually comes to muscadines. That's my gut feeling. If you were replanting a muscadine vineyard, you might do a count and see if you think you need to fumigate. I'd say that would be a suggestion from me that you would do that. And perhaps, if you had really, really high counts on some of these nematodes, it's possible those little baby muscadines might need some help. But in general, muscadines are pretty tolerant of nematodes. If you look at this is an example. This is from a producer down in South Georgia. You can see that we took different nematode samples. There's 2 Noble, that would be 2 samples of Noble. You'll see down there's 2 Carlos. And then these are some various hybrids, and you also see Norton at the bottom, another kind of a native grape also. But you see those hybrids, and you compare all of that to muscadines as far as the types of damage that we see, or potential damage to nematodes, just the numbers. They're just not there, and those are pretty old vines. So that again leads me to believe that we don't need to worry that much about nematodes. So I just bring that up for you. Crown gall, this is crown gall on muscadine. If you go to North Georgia, and there's now a lot of movement in muscadines in what I used to consider northern regions that might not be acceptable for muscadines, but they're actually growing pretty well. But especially when they're young vines, with some of the cold that we get in North Georgia, we do see crown gall because they can get damaged by cold if it's too cold. So keep that in mind as well. So they can get crown gall. They can get dieback diseases as well, what we call dead arm. And we have seen that before. A lot of this is where these pathogens come in on pruning cuts or any kind of damage to the vine. So that's an example of what that would look like. They're usually Bacteriophagia type diseases in Georgia. There are other pathogens that will cause similar symptoms, but when you see that kind of a V-shaped wedge, looks like pecan-colored wood, that's one of these dieback diseases. Again, often coming in on pruning cuts or other damage. This is another, I've shown this slide before in meeting, I don't know if y'all have seen it before, but if you look at these muscadines on the right versus on the left, the only difference is why that has more dieback on the right is because that had a really heavy fruiting the year before. So a lot of stress on the vines. Now this, if you look to the left, the producer that had those vines had put something on them that actually took all the fruit off. It was not intended, but it took all the fruit off, so you didn't have any fruit stress. So you got no fruit stress versus fruit stress, and then cold damage in this case was what caused that damage that allowed the pathogens to go in. You can see how much dieback we had from that. So what that tells me is, again, stress is also important to this disease. Maintaining a vine that is healthy and happy and not overstressed, which sometimes it's going to be, I don't know how you're going to get around having too much fruit sometimes. That would be a good year in a lot of ways, but also it could be something that would stress the vine. But you have to take that into consideration. You might have to give it some more fertilizer if not to help with it. So the current control measures for that type of disease, and I don't think a lot of people are doing this, but it's something you could do. So I said this is a pruning disease, right? So whenever you're pruning your vines, when do y'all prune your vines? January? February, okay, February. Especially in further south, it can be pretty warm, especially on some of those days, and the sun heats everything up pretty well. So when you prune, if you'll go back out there and spray those vines on those pruning cuts, and ideally I wish you'd had a piece of equipment just spray the pruning cuts only, but if you'll spray them with Topsin M or Pristine at the end of each day, that will help to keep those fungi from going in and causing that damage. So it's something I would advise you to do. And so it's something, again, I don't know how many people are doing that, but it's being recommended more and more for all grapes to do that. You can also, when you see dead arm, go ahead and cut it out. You got to get ahead of it. And then you can spray that little cut as well with a bottle or something like that with the fungicide in it. But you need to actually get ahead of it and cut it out. And then that will keep it from going all the way back down and killing the crown of the plant. And again, maintaining proper fertility and not stressing the vines, keeping them healthy. Okay, post-harvest disease control. I'm not going to really tell you anything to do, but I will mention a few things. I guess I will tell you some things to do. But we've not had in Georgia research conducted on post-harvest disease control in muscadines that I'm aware of. It's probably an opportunity. As I say, it's a black hole because we don't know that much about it. The one thing you do need to do is make sure that you get your fruit to market quickly. If you're talking about hand-picked or machine harvested muscadine, if you're you need to get it in somewhere pretty quickly. Now, if you're talking about wine grapes, maybe not exactly the same, but again, with the fresh market, you definitely need to get them into a cool temperature, and then with saturated relative humidity, or generally with low temperatures, and with saturated relative humidity are generally recommended. Muscadine fruit should be moved to market in refrigerated trucks at 4 degrees Celsius, sold within 7 days of harvest. I think that's still an accurate statement. So just make sure you get them cool and move them fast, and hopefully you won't have any problems. There are diseases that can occur post-harvest in muscadine, and a lot of these are going to be related to torn stem scars. And so I know, and Patrick, I'm assuming that's part of what y'all look at when you're doing your breeding program, right? So try to avoid these torn stem scars. I don't know how much of a problem this is really. I don't get reports back where people say I've had loads rejected in muscadines, so I hope that means it's not that much of a problem. But just keep that in mind. Yes, you can have problems, and if you don't get them to market in a timely fashion at the right temperature, that could be a problem. And then these torn stem scars may be selecting for cultivars that don't have that. As far as anything else, I don't know if anybody's using sulfur dioxide. It has been researched at some point, but again, it's something that we've not looked at here. And so that would be another possibility. There are other methods of controlled atmosphere, different things that, again, I don't think have been capitalized on for muscadines, and I'm not even sure that they're needed. But nonetheless, I'm just kind of covering all the angles when I'm going through this. All right, let's talk about another things that muscadines do have, I think, that, and I'm getting a little bit outside of my ballywick as far as knowledge base, but I can tell you about observation. Grape root borers, this is on Blanc de Bois, which is a hybrid down in South Georgia. And this particular vineyard was eaten up with these, okay? It's killing out the Blanc de Bois completely. This vineyard is surrounded by muscadines, and I have not seen a single one die. Now, I know that there's reports that grape root borer is a problem on muscadines, so I'm not saying it is not. I have personally never seen a vine die from grape root borer in Georgia. Y'all may have. I'd love to know that, but this is an entomological problem. But what I'm telling you is another benefit to the muscadine. Even this hybrid is eaten alive by this particular insect, and the muscadines that surround it look fine. So muscadines are a tough plant. That's my take on that. It's another good thing about muscadines. All right, so muscadines have a tremendous amount of value and a lot of potential. They don't have as many diseases as vinifera. Oglethorpe missed an opportunity when he came here by not just simply taking up muscadines and starting to make wine from them and also eating them, but nonetheless, I hope people learned over time. And so it is a great grape for Georgia and the Southeast in general. I do think it has a lot more potential, as Craig had said. All right, do y'all have any questions? Yes, sir.
With the emphasis in Europe and California on reducing the use of priority pesticides, has anybody looked at power and like materials or use in muscadine since the disease pressure is much lower?
For like howler and those types of materials, I have not personally. I'm not aware of anybody looking at it. But you're right. There could be an opportunity for some of these materials if they work well. I have looked at howler and thea. Again, you got to go crop by crop, and I just sometimes I'll say this: if we would have to look at muscadine and see how they perform. I've not seen great results on some of the other stuff that we've looked at it on. But we've not looked on muscadine, in answer to your question. Put it in our priority list. Yes, sir.
So I'm considering muscadine, but maybe like some others, not surrounded by them, having grown wild everywhere.
Yes.
On one side, I think that they want to grow where I'm at. On the other side, I'm concerned about viral issues from the wild muscadine.
Yes.
Is that a little different concern?
The muscadines can get viruses. I think the current answer I would give you is though they can get viruses, I do not know of any of the viruses that are causing major concerns on the muscadines. And so the natural native ones in particular, I've never identified a virus on a muscadine in Georgia. The only reason I know that is because people have especially looked where some of the non-native viruses are coming in, like coming in with vinifera, and then they go out into the muscadine and they say, yeah, they're there. So they actually provides a reservoir for that virus. But as far as it causing any major damage, even those, as far as I know, have not caused major issues. So I wouldn't be worried about the wild vines around you, is what I'm telling you, especially the wild vines around you. And there's, again, yes, those are going to have some diseases that are going to come into your domesticated muscadine. But that's just the way it is. That's why we spray them, so it'll be fine. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, so when I was UVA, that's way back, 1972, I had a class with Dr. John Hall. You know Dr. John Hall?
I do, yeah. I actually taught a class with Dr. John Hall at one point.
Pathology, and he was doing research on grape root borer.
Yes.
So he came to our farm, and Daddy gave him like 10 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the pine. And he pulled up, had some cookies off with it. Actually, part of it was Higgins. Remember Higgins variety? It was it pierces it.
I'm not familiar with that variety, but that's it, yeah.
He pulled them up.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them that was dying had grape root borer. You know when they get in that parts, that big part.
Yep. Yep.
It's not clear, but what he did, and they never got it documented, or even tried to, you know, dimethylate.
Dimethylate. I'm not sure what that is.
Chemical you still buy, they use to pick that stuff, or black egg.
Okay.
But dimethylate, a 3-inch dimethylate, at the base, and have to get it researched.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me, going back to that, I'm gonna ask you two questions real quick, and I got to run too. But so do you see a problem with borers? Do you do anything for them?
No, I do nothing.
And that's what my point is. I think, and that may have been a cultivar specific thing where it was susceptible. It just may not have had a lot of resistance. Period. There are ties you can put on now that are pheromone ties that will keep those borers out. We got Lorsban was off the market. Now it's back on the market for some things, but you could have sprayed with Lorsban. But I wouldn't count on that. So the only thing you got right now is pheromone ties. So that would be something you could do. It'd probably be something that would be better researched to see if we ever need to do it at all. And I've heard, again, there are papers on muscadine and borers. There are research papers on muscadine and borers. By comparison to vinifera grapes or these hybrids, muscadines just don't have borers. I mean, I think it can sustain a pretty large population of borers and be just fine. That's what my take is. I'm not saying they're not there, but the vine doesn't die.
But they have more, it's the other grape that's a lot wrong. Look at where somebody might have that with this problem.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes, there's all, yeah, and there, Brett Blau is actually always looking for other things to control borers. So it's not nobody's looking for stuff on borers, we just haven't done it on muscadine, is what I'm saying. But yes, you're correct. But he's looking mainly for vinifera borers. All right, I guess I better take off. All right, and I apologize, I got to run out on y'all. I got to go to another session.
All right, we have somebody here that can scan you if you need CEU credits, so maybe just raise your hand and she'll come by and scan your badge. Our next talk is Andy Zeman, who is owner of Benjamin Vineyards. And I saw Andy give a talk, I think it was online for a North Carolina thing, and I thought he gave a lot of good information, so I asked him to come talk to us. It's usually really helpful to have somebody that's actually doing and growing. He has been doing U-Pick for several years, and he's going to give an overview of his operation, and then we're going to leave lots of time for questions. So hopefully you people in the audience will have a lot of questions to ask him. Thank you. Oops, yeah, I got the...
Thank you. All right, thank you for showing up. This is the first time I've been invited to this program, and I've been really impressed by the vendor participation and the grower participation. So again, thank you for inviting me here. Yes, we're a U-Pick Muscadine Vineyard just west of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. What did I do? Okay, originally, we started as a farm winery. Back in the late 80s and the early 90s, North Carolina was trying to find another cash crop for tobacco growers, and so they put a lot of effort into providing training and other information on getting muscadine growers established in North Carolina. So we started out as a small farm winery. In North Carolina, a small farm winery was anything under 10,000 cases, and that we got a special tax benefit for being a small winery. That has since been eliminated. We first planted our vines in 2001, had our first wines in 2004, and then the funny thing started happening. People would taste our wines, and they go, well, you know, what do the grapes taste like? And so I said, sure, go out, help yourself. And they'd sample wines, and they'd go out in the vineyard and pick a few grapes. And after a while, they started leaving money. It was like, you know, what a great idea. You know, we can sell grapes for money in addition to making wine. So we added U-Pick as a full-time side business to our winery. We closed the winery in 2016, but since then we've been 100% U-Pick in the vineyard. All right, our vineyard, a lot of varieties. Our U-Pick varieties, we try and get a good selection. You might ask, why so many different varieties? Well, if you grow, say, one variety, Terra, your U-Pick season is going to be 2 weeks long. Once Terra starts ripening, it gets sweet, it gets ripe, and then it's on the ground. We find that by going to the Ison's Vineyard or Ison's Nursery catalog, we can space out our ripening times And so starting with Terra, we can get as much as 10, 11 weeks of picking time between the Terra variety and Summit and Sweet January. So you want to stretch that program out as long as you can. And you can do that by planting different varieties. Now sometimes the whole season will move. We try and open around Labor Day weekend. That's usually our opening day, and usually we're finished by the end of October. But depending on the weather, sometimes that whole picking season will move up a week or down a week. So we find that we have trouble with either early ripening or late ripening, but it will affect all the varieties. We still have wine varieties. We found that we've had a lot of home winemakers in North Carolina, especially in our county. Alamance County is well known for moonshine and homebrew. And one of the nice things about it is that whenever I get my homebrew people out, they always drop by a bottle of whatever they've been making, so I get a little benefit from that. But we'll sell Carlos and Noble by the 5-gallon pail to homebrew people. We still have our Magnolia Hump and Cinnamon, excuse me. But we're slowly phasing those out for what we call our fresh market varieties. All right, bigger is better. We have found that the Carlos and Noble for the U-pick people, unless you're a home winemaker, they don't sell that well. But the big ones, these are jumbo. So that is a good sized grape, very popular. And those vines are usually picked out as soon as they start ripening. We'll pick out the jumbo. The reds, Jumbo Supreme is also a very nice grape. Ison, I think, is the best tasting grape when we have people that come out and want to do jams and jellies or muscadine hull pie. We'll recommend the Ison variety. For bronze, the big ones are Sweet Jenny, then Fry, then Terra. So if you're planning for U-pick, get the big ones. All right, preparation for U-pick. We hedge our vines, so we leave a good amount of distance between the ground and the vines. People are wanting to get up under and get to those grapes. It also lets them, they need to be visible. A lot of our pickers come out and they say, well, we don't see any grapes, we can't find any. So unless we hedge the grapes up really tight, we don't get the vines picked as strongly as we do unless we hedge them. Keep the vineyard mowed. Label our vines. You'd be surprised the number of people that remember the names. We'll get phone calls in July saying, are the Scarlet ready? Are the Terra sweet? So label your grapes. Your customers will remember them and they'll ask for them. You want to clear all the weeds out. And spraying, mention spraying. We do not spray any chemicals on our grapes, and there's 3 reasons for that. Number one, we get a lot of families with young children out in the vineyard, and I do not want the liability of someone come to me, and even if it's not true, say, well, I got sick from the chemicals that you're spraying in your vineyard. Even if it's not true, I don't want that to happen, so we advertise no spray. Also, we sell a lot of grapes to local microbrews. And microbrews, I don't know if anybody makes homemade beer, they really love the wild yeast that's growing on the grapes. There's a lot of nice wild yeast on muscadines, and if we sprayed a fungicide on there, it would make the homebrew people very unhappy. So they like it that we don't use a fungicide. All right, the amenities. We do have a small picnic area. A lot of times we'll get a family that comes out with grandma and grandpa, and they'll let the kids out and pick, and they'll want a nice quiet place to sit. So we have a little picnic rest area. And sometimes people will come and bring a picnic lunch for the afternoon. Definitely restrooms with a porta potty, a hand wash station. It can be really simple. All our hand wash station is 2 5-gallon jugs upside down. We've got a little siphon nozzle, so you can walk up, step on a pedal, and it brings the siphon hose down, and you can rinse your hands out. So it's like a no-touch hand wash station. Trash cans. If you don't want trash in your vineyards, put trash cans out. Recycle bins as well. We're in the heat of the fall season. People are bringing water bottles out. If you don't make a place for them to recycle them, you'll have water bottles out of your vineyard that need to be picked up. And parking, of course. On a good weekend, we'll have maybe 100 people out picking grapes, so you have to have decent parking for them. If I'm going too fast, tell me to slow down. Okay, signage is very important. People come to us and, they've never picked grapes before, so Nancy, my wife, made up these wonderful signs that we put out in the vineyard saying, okay, don't pick this one, pick that one. Want them to pick the right ones. And even though we have signs out there, people will come in with a bucket of green grapes and say, and they'll say, will these ripen? And no, they won't ripen. So we have to educate people on how to pick muscadines. But signage, we have signs out on the street giving the times that we're open, the season that we're open, signs at the entrance. Each row of grapevines has a sign labeling, what variety it is. Our instruction signs, direction signs, and parking signs. Also what we do is we put up barrier tape because there are areas where we don't want people to wander. And if you don't put up barrier tape, they will wander in there. All right, advertising and promotion. Make sure you have a good website, lists the days and hours you will be open, and a telephone number. We get phone calls. Even though our website gives our date that we're open and the hours, we have people call us saying, when are you open? And so we have to tell them when we'll be open. And on your website, make sure you have, you pick and pick your own somewhere on the website because that's what people will be searching on. Our Facebook page, we publish daily updates with pictures of what's going on in the vineyard. Telephone messaging system has our times that we're open and our hours. Google Maps and Apple Maps are very important because probably 90% of your customers will use one or the other. And agritourism websites. All right, safety and security. And tape off limits areas where you don't want people to be wandering. The first aid kit. We had an incident this year. After 15 years of U-pick, we finally had a picker get stung by a bee and went into shock. So fortunately, the closest fire department is only 1 mile away, so the EMT was able to get there in time and took care of her. But we did not carry an EpiPen, and the fire department, they said, if you have an EpiPen, you have to be careful because you can do more damage with an EpiPen than you can benefit. So they say have Benadryl on hand. So if you have people to get bee stings, use Benadryl. So we flag off. We do have fire ant problems. So we flagged off all our fire ant mounds. And that, I don't know if that was a good thing or not because when the kids came out and they see all the flags, they identified which ones were they wanted to go play. So it was like, oh, look at the flag. Let me get a stick and go play with the fire ants. So I don't know if identifying all the fire ant mounds is a good thing or not. Hide all your tractors and implements, otherwise they become playthings. Agritourism liability. I don't know if they have that in Georgia or South Carolina. It's the sign that you put out that basically says, okay, you are coming out to an agricultural site. There are inherent dangers. There's animals, there's bees, there's bugs, there's snakes. So you're taking out a certain amount of liability by coming on this property. So we put those signs out, and if you're doing something stupid, you're going to get sued no matter what. But at least let people know that there are inherent dangers in an agritourism facility. No pets. That's a tough one. Again, we have a lot of children, young families that come out, and little children either love pets, they'll run up and try and hug a dog, or they'll run screaming away. And in either case, we don't want a dog bite to be a liability, so we don't allow pets except for service animals. and no vehicles. All right, we're in business to make a profit. We have to maintain the vineyard. We have to pay for, our pruners, our helpers. So things that you can do to your pick your own to add revenue. Pre-pick some of the grapes. Sometimes people will come up, I don't have time to pick, but if you got already picked. So we sell pre-picked grapes. Other fruit. We've got a small apple orchard. We grow figs. We grow okra. So anything else that you can put on that table to sell while people are out picking your grapes, that just adds to your bottom line. Muscadine juice and wine. We've got a company in North Carolina, Divine Foods. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they do jams and jellies and honey and you name it. They can take your grapes and make, private label jelly from your grapes. So we try and get as much additional product out for our customers. Crafts, plants. Sometimes I'll get some cuttings from our fig plants, get those rooted, and we'll sell fig trees. Just something else to help add to the bottom line. Cold beverages, make sure you've got a big tub of juice or just plain water on ice for your customers. But anything you can put out there to help your bottom line. All right, show your guests that you value their business. Here's a family that came out, the 2-gallon pails. 20 gallons of grapes at $2 a pound. So right there, that's about $200 worth of grapes that they bought. But welcome them. How did you hear about us? Have you ever picked here before? If you're not, let me show you where all the ripe ones are. We've got a little electric golf cart that when I have people come out for the first time, I'll show them where the best grapes are to pick. I'll take them out there in my golf cart. Thank them for their business. Offer to take their picture. So a lot of these people, they've never been out on a farm. They've come out from the city, and so you want to make this as a welcome and a fun experience for them. All right, big question. Sell by the pound or by the volume? We used to sell by the pound. I think we started out, it was 75 cents a pound. We're now up to $2 a pound. But then COVID hit, and we tried to figure out, well, how can we get away from handling the grapes, interacting with the people? So we went to selling by the volume. So what we do is we'll sell a 2-gallon bucket or a 1-gallon bucket at full fill price. So for example, a 1-gallon bucket is $12. That's what it would be if you filled it full of grapes and we weighed it and sold it. So there's a benefit to that in that you're always selling a full bucket. Previously, when we were doing it by weight, family would come up, they'd take 6 buckets out, 3 of them would be left in the vineyard, and the rest would come back half full. This way, you're always selling a full bucket. And the interaction with the customer, you're just selling an empty bucket, a brand new bucket. They go out, pick, go to their car and leave. So the amount of personal interaction is much less. And again, this was a result of COVID. Odd change. When you're weighing, you'll get $12.63 of grapes. So then you have to make the change. This way, we just sell the bucket, $12. Don't have to worry about making small change. Labor costs, when you're doing weighing, you're checking people in, giving them buckets and instructions. Then when they're coming out, you're dealing with them again, weighing the grapes, making change. So that cut that amount of interaction in half as far as having people running our pick your own shop. Used to be we'd have to have maybe 3, mostly 4 people, whereas now we can get by with just 1 person on a day that isn't so busy. All right, the big one, revenue. We're classified, I'd say, as a medium-sized winery, vineyard. In North Carolina, most of the vineyards are, I'd say, between 5 and 10 acres. We've got 10 acres, 6 of them are planted, and we plant them all on a Geneva double curtain system. So we've got the equivalent of about 10 acres of vine, and this is our revenue. So out of the U-pick, we get about $15,000. The wine grapes, these are the home winemakers come out and pick 5-gallon buckets at a time, and we still have some commercial customers. We've got a couple of wineries in Asheville, a microbrew that buys our grapes, and then we have several cider makers in the Raleigh, Chapel Hill area that also buy our grapes. So we still do a fair amount of commercial grapes. Accessories, that's the jams and jellies, 4,000, and other. We do one thing at the end of the season, when we still have fairly ripe grapes on the vine. I'll pick them, crush them, and freeze them away in 5-gallon pails. We'll do maybe 50 or 65-gallon pails, and then advertise all winter long. We're home winemakers. After they've made that first batch of wine with the grapes that they picked, they can come get a frozen bucket and they want to make more wine. So we sell frozen grapes, and we have actually shipped 5-gallon pails of frozen grapes as far north as Canada. So that's a little side business. Another side business that we're looking at, we get calls all the time for fresh grapes, and we haven't figured out yet how to ship fresh grapes conveniently. We could chill them down, put them in a styrofoam container, and overnight ship them, but the cost to ship them is much more than the grapes are cost. So shipping fresh grapes is still a question mark for us. So if you've got a small plot of land, 5 acres, 10 acres, now this is gross, $30,000 gross for about a 10-acre vineyard. And it costs, depending on whether we're fertilizing this year or not, it costs us between $5,000 and $10,000 to maintain the vineyard. So we're still netting about $20,000 on that small vineyard. So if you're ever looking to put in a small U-pick vineyard, I think it's profitable. All right, future plans. Seedless muscadines. There's a grape breeder from North Carolina. I don't know if you know him, Craig. He's developed a Oh, hey, good to see you. Seedless muscadine grapes. So we're going to try them this year. We're going to put in a couple of rows of seedless muscadine grapes. Those won't be for pick your own. We will probably pick those and sell them in quart containers at the tent. Co-op with other farms. We have a lot of small farmers that put up roadside stands, but they don't have grapes. So we're going to try and network them to sell our grapes through their roadside stands, or maybe do a trade where we'll sell their okra and they'll sell our grapes. Some plant sales. We did cutting from fig trees. We can't sell grape vines. Most of the vines that we're using are patented varieties. We're not selling grape vines. We've been growing blackberries. We can propagate blackberries fairly easily. So we're also looking at original plant sales and co-op with local suppliers. That's a big benefit for us. We had a meeting this winter with a local farm supply company, and basically they came out to us and said, if there's something that we don't stock that you need, we will order it just for you and sell it to you at wholesale. So, it increases their business, and it also gets us, hard to find items that normally we can't get in the store. So that's a big possibility there.
All right, everybody. We're going to start the next session. Our next session is going to be kind of a pair of speakers talking about the same subject. We're going to have Dr. Violetta Silova from Florida A&M University and Dr. Christy Almeida from North Carolina State University. And they're going to be talking about the Muscadine Clean Plant Network. First up is Dr. Violetta Silova from Florida A&M.
Oh gosh, I'm so bad with that. Forward? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I see the break and kind of we lost some of the audience, but who else is here? Pleasure to be here. Thank you, the organizer and our dear colleague Patrick O'Connor, that allow us to come and present. I know I came to talk on that topic probably 5 years ago. And I'm so happy today also that Phil kind of opened the discussion for the disease in Muscadines. It was a time when I've been imported to this country back in 1999. It was almost, how I can say, heresy to talk that, oh, Muscadine can have diseases. It was still that glorious time that we believed that you can grow commercially Muscadine. We are talking more than 5, 10, 100 acres without spraying, without treating for diseases. Of course, I'm so glad now 2024 versus 1999, we are discussing disease in Muscadine. You saw one of the earliest publications, Dr. Chen actually was a pathologist in our center that brought the attention to some of the disease and I think published a very small, nice, I kind of catch him for a very short time. But today we are here with my colleague from North Carolina and like everything, when something happened in the industry, and we are so proud, I think Greg mentioned initially that Muscadine industry continued to grow in the South, and Muscadine from a plant for hobbies and a kind of fun memory of your grandma, whatever they used to call it at that time, bullies and scapanon in the backyard, moved to be a real solid industry here in the Southeast. Yes, the fact that some of the states are very fortunate tourist destination help a lot, but we are proud now to have wineries like Chateau Allen here in Georgia and excuse me, North Carolina. I know you have a very strong wine industry. Also, Florida also went traditionally majority of the industry moved to wine simply because the wine goes so well to the industry. All the way to Texas, the whole zone that we cannot grow actually vinifera grape commercially. That's actually the entire industry. We rely on muscadines, and you saw some of the cultivars that Phil showed. Whatever we consider American native hybrid grapes that are vitis, that are much more sensitive to disease. Usually majority of them are wine cultivated. So, because, I don't know, maybe because they import me from Europe, and Europe solved the problem with the quality of the planting stock, and how important is the quality of your planting stock. Since the day that I arrived, I was sure if you're gonna grow industry, eventually that point is gonna come. But of course, for grape, that never been a solution. Yes, UC Davis was doing something under the plant industry, but nothing on a national level. And early 2008, it was a push exactly from the grape industry, because no need to remind everybody what happened in this country with the grape and wine industry. America was number 22 consumer per capita wine 1999 when I arrived. Here in the South, we still have dry counties, including in Florida. When my industry asked me to open wine appreciation course in our center in Tallahassee, Florida, at the Florida Agricultural Mechanical University, and I went to invite a colleague out of the School of Hospitality, Italian origin. Our center is located actually next to a very big capital city church. Dante at that time told me, Violetta, you crazy. They're gonna come and do the revolution. You cannot talk wine and alcohol here. But that was 99, and the things have started changing. And now everywhere that you go, in any corner, you're gonna see wine bar, wine cafe, you name it. And of course, it's happened a revolution in this country toward the grape products. And of course, that absolutely impacted the growth of the muscadine industry. And that's how we are continue to grow. And I'm showing you that slide, and I have a funny citation that is very common in the grape world. Dreamers become frustrated, knowledgeable dreamers become vineyard owners. And I have that beautiful photo that I like very much, that yes, in a glass of wine, you need to think when you drink your wine about the vineyard. That means with all the science and everything that we have current day, we still cannot make excellent wine from a low quality grape. That means the quality of the grape doesn't matter if it's going to be the fresh fruit, the beautiful large berry that you buy with your eyes, nice and juicy and simple, or sophisticated glass of wine. Whatever happened in the vineyard, and it's another saying, wine is made in the vineyard, finished in the cellar. That means it's a huge impact of the human factor in this industry. Because of that, when the initiative, the National Initiative for Clean Planting Stock has been launched, and it was actually former charter under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and current day it's actually a stable program that is funded through the Farm Bill. The country here, of course, California was the first. That's why grape was the first actually specialty crop that was on the books for the National Clean Plant Network. 2010, when we've been ready to represent the Muscadina and the muscadine industry in front of the national board, again, it was very much skepticism. Even Phil this morning say muscadine doesn't have viruses. Not exactly true, they have viruses. And I really feel sorry that I need to bring that news today, why we still need to monitor and keep. And we mentioned how expensive it is, the planting stock, particularly here for the southern industry. Actually, your major investment establishing vineyard is come through the planting stock. Additional after that, of course, the labor and etc. But probably 30-40% of your initial investment, it is the planting stock. And the motto of the National Clean Plant Network is exactly that. Start clean, stay clean. Of course, we cannot clean up with all the fungal diseases and everything that you talk about, but at least you should be sure that your planting stock is free of whatever we call transmittable with the planting stock diseases. They did mention some of them. Agrobacterium, that's how agrobacterium come. It's actually in the southern vineyards. It was transmitted from the northern state with the planting stock to the southern vineyards. And I think, I don't know, I don't remember what Phil said, but for 24 years in Florida, I can tell you, we have in some of the vineyards agrobacterium on the cordon, that it's absolutely unusual place to grow the tanker there. But I think Phil also showed some of the pictures. It's definitely transmitted through the region with the planting stock, with the infected planting stock. That's one of the small things that we can monitor. The other disease that is on the radar, these are the viruses. And I know we are talking here in the Southeast, but I just need to remind you, because the National Clean Plant monitoring system didn't exist for so long in this country, and the wine industry and grape industry was growing from 60s to the 2000s, California has three major outbreaks. The first one, it was leaf roll 3, the virus, leaf roll diseases, devastated until was scandal. After that, the Pierce disease outbreak in the early 2000s. Current day, red blotch virus. Yes, we've been kind of sheltered and living to the illusion that Muscadine doesn't have the viruses, and really still they are not huge concern. simply because you know what is the structure of the industry here in the south. Small vineyard here and there, 5 to 10. Yes, some big vineyards. We have a 300, 400 acres, 500 acres. But still, we do not have congested area that is monoculture vineyards like Sonoma, Napa, now Oregon, Yakima Valley, and Washington State. That still keep us a little bit protected. The gentleman with the new vineyard that was concerned. No, wild muscadines are not concerned in your neighborhood. But if the industry continues to grow and we do not monitor the distribution of transmissible diseases with the additional heavy disease pressure that we have due to the climate that we have, high moisture and fungal disease on the book, and on top of everything, pests that are in most cases vectors for these diseases, in particular for viruses. No need to tell you, for us in Florida and the Gulf State, invasive species, fire ants that we flag, remember they are invasive species that come to South America. We have another threat now that potentially, please Georgia, be lucky not to reach to you, citrus weevil, that is a quarantine pest in Texas, that has absolutely devastating consequences for the citrus industry, but it was reported already in North Florida, and it's such a monster pest that eat everything, including grape. We will see how it's going to be. It has more than, 500 hosts. That means we definitely need to keep in the radar. That's why I say that the quality of the planting stock, and that's what it has been doing with the support under the charter of the National Clean Plant Network. Here in our center, we start up Southeastern Clean Plant Center for Southern Grapes. What that contain and how this work. So, the Muscadine, or whatever we call the Southern Grape Clean Plant Network, is the joint initiative that it was established back in 2016 after we kind of discussed, okay, who know more about the disease in Muscadine? We decide, okay, if we want to handle them, we better join effort and do it together. National board recommend us, and we work together, Florida and University, that we've been the pioneer of the movement, and North Carolina State University, micropropagation and repository unit. Under the charter, we receive a modest funding based on grant writing to start that work, because the first big step is to do the diagnostic, to do the survey, to identify the impact of this transmittable disease in our vineyards. And of course, you see them. Dieback, it's one like that, agrobacterium, and I'll show you what potential threat are the viruses for us. Because don't forget, grape material travel. Even though that we have some quarantine restriction East Coast, West Coast, many of the viruses that are in the vinifera grape, it appears that they can jump to us, and you'll see in a minute. The mission of the network and these centers, 2 centers that currently, and we work very close also with colleagues from Texas. We try to catch up the whole corner that is actually under the Pierce's disease threat, that we are limited to grow mainly muscadines and vitis PD tolerant. The mission to maintain, to establish whatever we call G1 nuclear foundation block. These are plants, planting stock from the major cultivars that we grow here in the south that are already tested and start and propagated in X number of copy. In my case, our field foundation, that is actually the biggest for the southeast, and the first one, it's each cultivar is represented between 5 to 16 copies that come from single mother that has been tested for 20, initially for 18 viruses, Agrobacterium, Pierce's disease, and dieback, and proven that is healthy. And we continue to serve, let's say, by the request of a nursery, if they want new cultivars to be introduced to that foundation block, we test it. If we consider that your material is infected with the diagnostic, we have a method, we will see in a minute how we clean the material, through the meristematic shoot tip, because most of the diseases that are transmitted with the planting stock are transmitted through the vascular tissue, and it was proven that the meristematic tip grow faster and the virus cannot reach, or whatever it is, let's say Xylella or etc., the tip of the plant. That is a standard procedure accepted in the world. Our main mission to provide clean planting material of regionally adapted muscadine and PD-tolerant American native hybrids, free of the targeted transmittable by planting stock diseases through testing, diagnosis, and therapy. The goal of this initiative to distribute clean material to breeders, stakeholders, on demand, specifically in the southeast of United States. For example, any new cultivars released through the breeding program in Georgia and Florida, our program, it makes sense to be included in this foundation block. Pretty much the main objective, producing high-quality disease-free muscadine and PD-tolerant native grape, like I say, by in vitro meristem, conduct research, and continue to monitor the development of the industry that we just discussed with my colleague, and eventually we'll try to launch a survey of the vineyards, and Patrick, maybe I'll talk with you and your extensionist to get material from commercial vineyards to try to catch up and see what is the current distribution. We have two viruses, major concern, to see where we are standing, and I will be presenting in a minute. And of course, to operate diagnostic facility, let's say breeder or somebody bring their cultivar to be able to test and clean up accordingly. So this is the visual of the foundation block in our center. It was established back in 2010. It is in two copies, under two conditions, because don't forget, we live in the south. Yes, we start clean, but I still have any fungal disease on the book in Florida, and we have any possible leaf hopper and any vector that you can imagine that can reintroduce potential disease. That's why we keep it single copy of this also under screen, under protective screen. That means if some of these vines in the field foundation get infected, that can be eliminated and replanted with the clean material. These are source for soft or dormant cuttings, depends on the propagation way. That's under the screen foundation block. I'm sorry, it's a little bit kind of language that we use under the National Clean Plant Network, like this nuclear stock, foundation material, foundation vineyard, etc. Just get used to that's all this related to that material that has been proven that originate from a clean mother, or mother that was clean for this transmittable disease. So what we currently have in this foundation block, we maintain in the foundation vineyard 24 economically important muscadine and PD-tolerant hybrid vitis cultivars. Of course, we have copies also under the greenhouses. Everything goes through in vitro micropropagation as a method for cleaning if it's needed. That's why the photo. Of course, since 2016, we have a full diagnostic in-house capacity. Initially, we partnered with the network. For example, our mothers, initially back in 2010, before North Carolina joined us, we've been using Cornell University, in the nation currently we have for Grape 5 centers. California and Washington State carry the West Coast. Cornell carry the cold tolerant grapes up north. Missouri State carry the central, all the Nortons and these hybrids, Labruscus, etc., that they grow down there. And for the south, we start Florida first, and now we join, because it's quite a big of an area, all the Mid-Atlantic and Gulf states. North Carolina help us with the Mid-Atlantic states to serve the growers and nurseries. And Florida, we carry pretty much all the Gulf states up to Texas. Of course, current day diagnostic, Muscadine, another difficult thing is why we don't know so much about the viruses. Old methods, whatever it's called, classical method for testing, is based on grafting of a specific indicator plants. Muscadine didn't graft so well. The industry was small, no funding to go and test and check. The first check, actually, it was work of Sabanovich. I'll present that, 2012, 2014, that actually get the indication that, yes, we have some viruses in the muscadine, both wild and the one that are in the vineyards. That's just to illustrate the apical meristem methods, that if you give me the infected material, how we can clean up that. Of course, this is like a short dendrogram to show you. We work with a very diverse genetic material, because even in muscadine, our commercial cultivars, we know that is Muscadine rotundifolia, or the self-fertile material. It's actually type of a cross with other two species under the muscadine. That's why we have a self-fertility in muscadine. Even in muscadine itself, we have a genetic diversity. And of course, these vitis hybrids, they're mainly based on estivalis, everything that comes from old Florida breeding, like Stover, Blanc de Bois, even the new one that we release now, Blanc de Soleil. These are everything based on the estivalis Pierce's disease transmitted. That means we need to adapt all this methodology to all this diverse material. That is quite a demanding work. That's why it took us a little bit of a time to kind of settle and establish all the pieces of the network. What we have additional to the current day foundation, at least in Florida, and my colleague Christy will tell you about Shikeri in Carolina, what is accessible and ready for use from the industry. Because we are a breeding program in Florida also, like I say, Florida pushes us mainly to wine grapes. This is our new patent grape cultivars, Blanc de Soleil. It is as a replacement for Blanc de Bois that is much more sensitive to diseases. My time? I'm almost wrapping up. Okay. The newest one, Florida Onyx, very uniform ripening, and Floriana as a complementary to Noble, because you know Noble is the dominant. This is the list. You're going to have that presentation online, the list of the available accession under the foundation in Florida. One word about the danger that we face, which just has been confirmed, a red blotch in muscadine, firstly reported in 2020 in Tennessee vineyards. I'll show you the reference. And we confirmed this year, we retested everything again. Carlos, you noticed from few presentation that Carlos can have a symptom for Pierce disease. Is in general one of the varieties that genetically a little bit more weaker. That's why we're gonna launch and have a survey, hopefully in 3 states or 4, to see where we're standing with red blotch. Because you know California even never tested until 10 years ago. This is red blotch symptomatic in Carlos, and this is your red blotch sorry about that. In Black Spanish, just to see the difference. These are the publications. That's the publication from Tennessee. Another virus that is possible endemic for the muscadine, leaf roll 2. That was reported by Sabanovich 2014. That's the first report for the leaf roll 2. This is about the funding of the program and etc. And thank you. Sorry, Christine.
We're going to slide into the next speaker.
So I'm gonna go really quick. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Christy Almeida. Can you hear me fine there? I'm too short, so sometimes I feel like, you know. So I'm serving as the director of the Clean Center in North Carolina and State University. We have many crops, of course. Today I'm just going to talk about muscadines. So as Violeta said, I will go over really quick under the NCPN stuff because she already touched base about this. NCPN, our mission is to provide clean planting stock for muscadine grapes for the entire Southeast. We were created under the umbrella of the USDA, the National Clean Plant Network. This was established in 2008. A lot of people always ask what is NCPN. So it's an association of clean plant centers, scientists, educators, state and federal regulators, nurseries, growers from industry, everybody concerned about the health of the crop of interest. In our case, my program, the MPRU, the Micropropagation and Repository Unit, is considered a multi-crop center, so we have mainly sweet potatoes, berries, and grapes. Of course, grapes, muscadine grapes, they are kind of like our new crop. So as Violeta also mentioned, the goals under the NCPN standards are mainly into these two. The first one and the second one, I would say, they are the most important. The first one, to optimize the production, maintenance, and distribution of clean plants. How do we do that? We mainly do the four things. Therapy, meaning like we have a lot of all the technology in our center to do pathogen elimination. As she already mentioned, meristemming. We also can do a heat treatment. Detection, we do all the molecular testing mainly, and then effective pathogen testing in our unit. Maintenance, we have a foundation. It's not really that big in North Carolina, but we still have about 10 genotypes that we maintain all the foundation that is clean and is ready to be available, distributed for growers. And then propagation, we of course distribute the clean material. Mainly we go through nursery, so we still need the nursery to kind of like do the massive propagation to final growers. So with the goal number 2, which is to optimize the adaptation, implementation of novel technologies and then increase awareness, the main thing is education and outreach. So things like this venue, is where we come and then we try to show growers and then people to educate about what we have, what our services and what we can do for you. Economic study initiative, that's to give a value, why it's important to have clean plants and to use clean plants, and why growers have to be convinced about using the clean material, starting clean to stay clean throughout the season. And quality management systems means like in all the centers that are under the umbrella of NCPN, we all should have, a quality control, so we all should do the same testing, the same protocols, and the same everything. So just a little bit, this is more for grapes in general. We are currently 6 centers in the entire nation. Of course, here we are in the Southeast, so just for muscadines, we have NC State and then Florida A&M. And then, as you can see up there in the West Coast, Washington State, as Violeta also mentioned, FPS in UC Davis, Cornell, and Missouri. Of course, all the material that is kind of like spread out in the entire country is totally different. We are concentrating mainly in the Southeast, so some of the material that we have, also Violeta has it, or all the way around. So we try to have redundancy, but in general, we all should serve as a backup. And then just going to the program directly in North Carolina, everything started even with my predecessor, Dr. Svezda Pesik, with this grant back in 2015 and 17. And the goal of this block grant was to use micropropagation and virus testing to establish a source of disease-free true-to-type muscadine grapevine. So we started back then. I was still a postdoc in that time doing all the tissue culture and the virus testing. So how we started here, the goal number 1 was to establish a source of pathogen-tested tissue culture plants. Already people talk about, all the diseases. There were concerns, about Pierce diseases, crown gall, or any type of fruit rot. And then as Violeta also said, that there were some reported viruses back then. We are talking about the leaf rot 2, Bt viruses V, blackberry viruses, and then Gyracytovirus. So, and then the goal was to produce material that it was disease-free. And then the other goal that is still, an issue so far, is to establish a source of the true to type nuclear stock. So we have seen mainly in North Carolina, as you can see there in the picture, we have, whatever is considered Carlos and whatever is not considered Carlos. So there is a lot of mix-ups and then not really true to type material. So that was also a goal for this initiative. So over the years, as you can tell there in the up top, yes, this one. So there are years where we get funding and there are years where we don't get funding. So as you can imagine, it's very difficult to continue building a program without funding, right? So last year we were lucky, at least we got funded, and then over the years you get to see the activities. I started this position back in 2017, I guess. So over the years we have been able to maintain the material that we have. It took us about 2 years for us to build up the diagnostics capacity. I will talk eventually more in detail about this. And then in 2019-20, that's when we started providing services for cleanup. And then we did a survey in 2018 and 19 with the new hire at NC State, Dr. Mark Hoffman, for grapes in general, not really for Muscadine grapes, but at least we started, some of the testing after we got the build-up capacity. And then at some point we produced some clean material. We sent it to Castle Haynes to Bill Client, and then he did the trueness to type test in the field. And then we released the first order back then in 2021. Of course, that didn't really mean that, for us at least, that our product went there and then it was successfully, back to growers. Not really. I mean, even our nursery had issues to propagate all this material in tissue culture. They eventually are going to get more material from us and then continue into building up this distribution. So for 2003, for the funding that we got that last year, we know that still we need to work with nurseries who are eventually going to get our material and, as I said, propagate that in their facilities. Of course, we are conscious that we need to do a survey in Muscadine grapes to know an idea what are the viruses that are really infecting the material there, and then we continue to strive working with industry for education and outreach. So this is the material that we currently have in our screenhouse. We don't really have any foundation in the field. Everything for us is in the screenhouse. I don't know if you can read that, but these are the material that we have: Summit, Triumph, NC, 1005, Supreme, Nobel, Carlos, Fryness, Victara, and Lane. So we have, multiple clones, I would say, from these selections, and then we have everything, and then we have everything in the screenhouse. So all this material, as I mentioned, came originally from tissue culture, is currently clean in the program, and then we had to test it. So for that, we build up this diagnostics capacity. So far we are testing for these 13 pathogens, as you can see on the top, the leaf rolls that we were talking, and then also red blotch, of course, rupestris, the BT viruses, A and B, Cyrovirus, tobacco ring spot, phytoplasma, tomato ring spot, and also Xylella. So far all the testing that we are doing for these pathogens is real-time PCR, so all this molecular stuff. And then this is kind of like just to let you know how the Bill Client did the trueness to type test in the field. We don't do it. We just do mainly tissue culture and virus testing. So we handed this material over to the field over there in Castle Haynes, and they did it. So after, as I said, for us to build up the capacity for virus testing in our program, we had to go initially through a survey. So just to make sure this survey was just in bunch grapes, not really in Muscadines. I did this work with Dr. Mark Hoffman back then in 2017, where some viruses, symptoms were showing up, of course, red blotch here, and then some of the leaf rolls. And then the results from the survey were these. Over the years we were able to find mainly leaf rolls, red blotch, of course, rupestris, and then Xylella. So over the 3 years, and then eventually we were able to come up with the distribution of viruses in North Carolina for bunch grapes. And then, as you can tell here in red, the red blotch viruses over here in these areas, and then in blue, more like the leaf rolls over here. So, but then again, we weren't able really to do a Muscadine grape survey. We are still looking for funding for this type of work. We are looking into a 2024 block grant submission this year, so we can have a better idea of the viruses occurring in Muscadines in North Carolina. So of course all this went into extension publication. You can look it up. And this was also really important mainly for us, for growers in North Carolina. So we came up with this relationship with the clinic at NC State, and then we came up with this kind of like pipeline when growers were coming to the clinic and then asking how they can submit samples. So now we are providing that service. We partner up with the clinic, and then we do all the testing for grapes, and also for other crops, as you can tell here, for berries mainly. And then for growers in North Carolina, we have specific fees, and then whenever growers submit samples to them, we get called, and then we do all the testing. And then just, I know I'm running because time was short, But these are the highlights from our program. I mean, our Clean Center in North Carolina. As I said, last year we were funded, so we were really happy with that. We already have the capacity for virus testing for 13 pathogens, and I guess another positive thing for the state was that we had this partnership with NC State at the Plant Disease and Insect Clinic. So in terms of the maintenance and foundation, as I mentioned, we are currently maintaining these 10 genotypes in triplicates. So this is in tissue culture and also in the greenhouse. For therapy and detection, we have 3 genotypes from Arkansas. I mean, the Arkansas program somehow was looking for that service, and we are still providing that. The material is soon to be released. And then, especially last year, we provided detection services for industry. Growers just show up with some samples, and then we provide the data. And then in terms of propagation, we continue to distribute this material to this North Carolina nursery, but unfortunately this nursery wasn't really able to propagate in tissue culture. So we are replacing that material and hoping to have a better result from there. And I guess that's all that I have. Thank you. Question?
So between meaning technical breeding, biochemistry, biotechnology, abiotic stress, volatile esters, and my outsources collaborators for genomics and transcriptomics. So practically what is active projects we work with right now is related to nutraceutical value of muscadine grapes. We take the advantage of muscadine grapes, either we try to highlight them to improve, provide scientific evidence, or to understand what is this mechanism, so we can transfer this either to bunch grapes or to muscadine, to other muscadines for breeding. So we work with anti-cancer activity of muscadine grapes. We work with aroma, comparison of aroma, to understand what is the qualities of wine and why the people prefer bunch grape wines rather than muscadine wines. Breeding for new cultivars, identify molecular mechanism underlying abiotic stress. We focus on drought, salt, and hypoxia. Berry color and antioxidant activity is related to nutraceutical value. Produce large seedless muscadine berries for fresh consumption, and antifungal properties of muscadine grapes for the try of producing biofungicide or producing cultivars that are resistant to current challenges of fungal diseases. So practically, I'll talk for these 3 topics rapidly. This is from less interesting to higher interesting, from achieved to in progress to achieve. So for berry color and the antioxidant activity. So for bunch grapes, we have diverse color degrees, and this is known because of MIB. MIB transcription factor is like a water source that is, when you close, the berry is white. When you open a little bit, it's more red, and when you open totally, the berry will be black. However, in case of muscadine, so that's why we have different degrees of color. However, in case of muscadine, we have either bronze, or the majority, either bronze or black. However, the reason for the color, we don't know exactly. So we make like genome-wide association studies. We characterize a population that has diverse colors, and among the 20 chromosomes of muscadine, we found only one place is chromosome 4 that has something that can explain the diversity or the distinguished color of bronze and the black in case of muscadine. When we go to this region, we found a certain gene named glutathione acetyltransferase that is involved in anthocyanin transportation. And rapidly, we can see here that both bronze muscadine or colored muscadine, both of them produce anthocyanin. This is what we proved. So what happens there? So both of them, this is the MIB that controls the bunch grapes color. So here, when this is very active, meaning the berry is very colored in case of bunch grape. When it's not active, the berry is white. So in case of muscadine, these all are active. These all in the cytoplasm are active. So until we reach here, this is the GST. GST is the guy who can permit the anthocyanin molecule to go inside the vacuole. So we can visualize the color of the berry. If it stay in the cytoplasm, we can't see that. So both bronze and the colored produce anthocyanin. So why GST transport this anthocyanin into the vacuole? Anthocyanin molecule is toxic. So if it stay in the cytoplasm, it will kill the cell. So here, the transportation is not for us to visualize the color. The transportation is to protect the cell. So you can tell me now, so in case of bronze berries, the anthocyanin is trapped outside. It can't go because here there is a mutation, and it can't take the anthocyanin from cytoplasm and put inside the vacuole. So what happened? To overcome, this is the beauty of the system, to overcome that this is not available, the anthocyanin converted into another format by taking the glucose, the sugar out, and it converted into proanthocyanidins. Proanthocyanidins, there is other kind of GST or glutathione acetyltransferase that takes it and put in the vacuole. So to overcome the mutation happened here, they convert the anthocyanin into another product that is colorless, by the way, and they take it by other GSTs that are active and put into the vacuole. So here, I can tell you both colored and non-colored muscadines are high nutraceutical value, high from antioxidant perspective. Why? Because yes, anthocyanin is color, anthocyanin is flavonoid, anthocyanin is antioxidant. However, proanthocyanidins is more antioxidant. So both colored and non-colored is high in antioxidant. Yes, it's advantage in bunch grapes, but in case of muscadine, it's a monster. I am active, I am solid. From nutraceutical perspective, either colored or non-colored. So why we can find in muscadine high antioxidant and low antioxidant irrespective to color. So here we found that is anthocyanin is positively involved in antioxidant activity? Yes. Red muscadine more antioxidant activity than bronze muscadines? No, in fact, we can say that both of them are the same. So why wine generated based on colored muscadine berries is healthier than wine generated from unpigmented muscadine? It's easy, because the processed red muscadines, we put skin and the seeds during fermentation. However, the bronze one, we don't put seeds and the skin. So the seed and the skin is the place where all antioxidant components come, so it's concentrated. So why muscadines exhibit diversity? When we go there, we found, based on, again, of GWAS analysis, to just run, we found that high antioxidant activity associated with this glucosyl transferase, low antioxidant activity because there is a gene, is enzyme that digests the gallic acid. Gallic acid is the major source of antioxidant activity in muscadine. So when the muscadine, irrespective to the color, has high quantity of this enzyme, meaning the gallic acid is not there, the antioxidant activity is low. When this enzyme is not active, the gallic acid is there, the antioxidant activity of muscadine is high. So I'll go to the next topic for seedlessness. So in muscadine grapes, here we try to generate seedless muscadine using gene editing technology. So the fruit set program in muscadine, it's two systems. Either seeded, whatever the type of flower is female seeded. This is Florida onyx, our new release, and here our perfect seeded. This is Floriana, and here or Parthenocarpi. Parthenocarpi, it's a Parthenocarpi seedless. How it goes? It goes because the ovary has high auxin levels that make the ovary go to transit to fruit without waiting the pollination. So that's why at longer term, these auxin levels are not enough to produce large berries. That's why we found the berries is small. So in case of bunch grapes, we have three systems, and this is particularly in bunch grapes. We have the seeded system, and we have a stenospermocarp system. Seeded system meaning pollination, seed formation. The seed formation make auxins, gibberellins. So the berry continue, big size, berries, and big clusters. So in case of Parthenocarpy, I just explained. However, in case of Stenospermocarpy, what happened? The pollination happened. So the auxin and the gibberellin start. However, in the beginning, the embryo just don't push me, wait. Okay, the embryo started to collapse. So what happened is the hormone already started there. So the berry has higher level of hormones, so it grows. Yes, it doesn't reach the level of seeded, but it's much bigger than the seedless, the Parthenocarpy seedless. So here there is a Spanish group who discovered a gene. It's a kind of gene, AGL11, box, that when we inhibit or interrupt this gene, it produces Stenospermocarpy seedlessness. So our target to generate muscadine grapes exhibiting Stenospermocarpy, not Parthenocarpy seedlessness. Introducing the trait by conventional breeding is impossible. We know that muscadines are 40 chromosomes, bunch grapes 38 chromosomes. Like spring, it will be 39 chromosomes sterile. So it's impossible to use this, except, of course, in this case with back crossing, long time to reach this level. Several research groups, yes, we identified the AGL11, so we decided to use the gene editing technology to produce large berries. And once we confirm this, we can take, by breeding again, we can take the transgen out of muscadine. So what is the problems we faced? We faced that muscadine, or grapes in general, to introduce the trait, we have to work with somatic embryos. So it takes from us a little bit of time to reach the protocol, to have active somatic embryos that we can transform. Second thing is the gene is really very cut it into small pieces. So there is no region that we can interpret to make the gene editing here or there. So anyway, we succeeded to do that either by insertion, deletion, or substitution of amino nucleotides. So here we can see the callus, pre-embryonic callus. Here is the somatic embryos of muscadine grapes. We cut this somatic embryo and we go individually here in another media. So propagation of somatic embryos. So we have a lot of here. We make transformation, and after that we put in select media. So all the brown thing is non-transformed. Here it's a transformed one. We cut, we put, we grow plant, and we have so far 45 lines that confirm it that it's they are already like the mutation happened either in the N terminal, in the C terminal, substitution, deletion, insertion, and we wait until we reach a certain size to make grafting to accelerate and see if these plants produce seedless, large berry seedless grape, yes or no. We use genotypes colored Majesty and Onyx, Florida Onyx to make this transformation. So if we lose, it's almost 20 gram berries. So if we lose like 20–30% of the size, meaning due to seedlessness, so we still have considerable berry size. So here we go for the last issue is the ripe rot characterization of muscadine grapes for ripe rot disease resistance. Here we found that muscadine always is a monster. So we always challenge. So we do what? We grow the spores of the ripe rot. We have the spores in liquid media. We go penetrate spores under skin. So we give the fungus its optimal condition to grow. And we go in 25 degrees. Normally they do for 4 days, the research related to that. They made in leaves. In 4 days, no, we made for, in case of bunch of grapes, of course, we made for 7 days. And we challenge, we see what happened. So we just tested last year 16 genotypes. Among them there is Nobel, of course, there is Carlos, there is Albemarle, Regal, whatever we can catch. After that, it's a selection produced under our breeding program. So here we can see that Nobel is very sensitive, like it reaches 100% or 90 something, and after that we started to go down. Carlos almost have 40%, So what we see here, we see that there is diversity in response to fungal diseases. This is based on the lesion. This is percentage is the lesion size developed during incubation. So the most interesting thing that we have something that makes 0%, no infection, 0 infection. We see nothing. To show you that, we can see here. So here is the most sensitive genotype. This is day 0, practically control. Here day 7. So we find this after 7 days, you see the lesion size covers the whole berry. In this case, so based on whatever the 16 genotype, it's not representative really. We have to do whole population, but we categorize them based on lesion size into susceptible, meaning the lesion size between 78.5 to 100%. And I'll explain in details after that what happened. Tolerant, so we have between 45.5 to 65.8, resistant between 14 to 29, and immune 0. So what happens there? You see this is the injection region, injection, injection, injection. So we have 4 different patterns here. So you see the injection, make the fungus go, this is all the brown region here, and start like damaging the flesh and making lysis. So practically there is nothing remain after 7 days. Here tolerant, so this is from my perspective anyway. So here is the injection, there is growth of fungus under the skin here. This is the injection, this is the growth. However, there is no damage here. We can say this is after 7 days. So the fungus doesn't take, even after 7 days, doesn't take the full capacity to go and make the enzymes digest and extract the sugar and these kind of things. So here, the resistant one, and you see the injection, and after that we see nothing. You see after 7 days, between 0 and 7, perhaps there is a little bit growth here, okay? This is here. That's all what we see after 7 days. After which, even we challenge for 14 days, but not all of them can resist these 14 days, of course. So here, it's day 0, like day 7. So you see here the injection, and you see here the injection. So what is the difference between here and here? Here, and I'll tell you based on the system, here we can see that this is the beauty, what we read in the text and we can visualize now is in a photo, like there is a programmed cell death happened here, limit the fungus, and they can't spread anymore to anywhere. So the fungus is still there after 7 days, but it can't spread anywhere without any function within the berry. Here, even we can't see the fungus. The fungus disappeared. So here that's what I name resistant, and here what I name immune. Even the traces of fungus, what we add artificially under the skin with a lot of sugar, this is ripe berries, okay, I can't resist this. So we do GWAS analysis, but this GWAS we did what? We did to save, sometimes we did the extract of seeds that has high concentration of antifungal properties, antifungal compounds, metabolites, and we analyzed the whole population of 354 by growing the spores in liquid media, adding the extract, and we see the ability to inhibit the spores, the fungus spores, relative to control. So we have a range of inhibition between 22% to 90%. This inhibition pattern is not associated neither with total phenolics or flavonoid or anthocyanin. So it's not associated with anything. And this is practically, we expect that there is particular, not associated with total, but particular phenolic or flavonoid compound or protein that inhibits. Not total, meaning particular. So when we made GWAS analysis the same, we come with, forget about all chromosomes, there is something here associated with that. So, because we just still running for experiment, based on molecular analysis and some metabolomic analysis, we have indication of the master genes that control all this pattern, why the resistant is resistant, why the susceptible is susceptible. We have identified the antifungal proteins and metabolites, And they are very beautiful because once you add, it's like magnetic, the negative and the positive. They go, land on the spores, and one of the proteins just digest the cell wall of the spores, so it kills them, and the other one kills them directly. Okay, this is from the immune one. So this is our idea to generate a biofungicide to avoid the fungicide chemicals pollution. So we have some kind of idea about that anyway. And based on our analysis, we found that the resistant or immune one produce salicylic acid, a lot of salicylic acid once we inject salicylic acid. So salicylic acid activates the defense mechanism of PR genes and until reaching programmed cell death, limiting and killing the spore. However, the sensitive one, the detection of the disease is defective. The master gene that control is defected, mutated. So it can't sense the presence of fungus. When it senses the presence of fungus? After 5 days. After 5 days, it's too late. So it still try to define itself by accelerating or generating jasmonic acid and ethylene. This is a hormone for but it doesn't work. That's why it's sensitive. So this is the key gene that we think is that due to the mutation, and by the way, it seems for us it's recessive, meaning the resistant character is recessive. The susceptibility is dominant, but we are not sure yet. And the very important thing, a mistake that we did, but allowed us to repeat this experiment at least 4 times to ensure that the immune is immune, the weak is weak, is wet scar and dry scar. Wet scar is a killer here. Killer. Everything is wet. Dry scar is, that's why if we go back here, you see, we cut even wet, resistant also, we cut with this peduncle to be sure that there is nothing exposed to the fungus. So if there is any resistance, it will come from the act what we artificially add.